All right, everyone, this is the semicolon lesson. This is a semicolon. A lot of people get mixed up with what a semicolon looks like, and they usually mix it up with the colon. Well, just remember that the word semi means half, and half of a semicolon is a period, half of it is a comma. So a full colon is just the two dots, but a semicolon is half of a dot, and then the other half is a comma-looking thing. So that's what a semicolon is. Now, the purpose of a semicolon is to connect two independent clauses. Now, if I remember, an independent clause has both a subject and a verb, and it can be a sentence by itself. So a semicolon is just connecting two of those complete sentences without a break, basically. So it will be a complete independent clause, semicolon, and then another complete independent clause. Now for these three examples, all three of these are written grammatically correct, so it uses a semicolon correctly. It should have an independent clause on this side, an independent clause on this side, and each side will have both a subject and a verb. So all I need to do is identify where the semicolon is, the independent clauses, and the subject and verb. Green is going to be my subject, pink is going to be my verb. Now, look at the sentence. The dog barked loudly. The neighbor yelled for it to quiet down. This is a semicolon. I can tell because it's half a period, half a comma, and I know that a semicolon connects two independent clauses. So I know that this side will be an independent clause and this side will be an independent clause. So I'm going to write IC above that side to show that this is an independent clause. And then IC on this side to show that it's an independent clause. Now, let's identify the subject and verb of this first one. The dog barked loudly. The subject is the thing, person that is doing the verb, which is usually an action or a state of existence. It's easier for me to find the verb first. What is the action or the thing that's being done in this sentence? The dog barked loudly. Well, I know that barked is a thing that is happening. So that is my verb right there. I'm going to put a V above there, verb. Now, who or what is doing the barking? Well, the dog, piece of cake. Dog is the subject. Okay, got that first part done. Second part, the neighbor yelled for it to quiet down. What is the action taking place in that section? Well, I know that yelled is a thing that we do. So that's the verb. Who or what is doing the yelling? It is the neighbor. So that is my subject. Using a semicolon, it connects two independent clauses that are related to each other. Okay, second part. I cleaned the entire house, semicolon. My siblings ignored the effort and made a mess again. Well, here's a semicolon. So I know that this side is going to be an independent clause and this side is going to be an independent clause. I cleaned the entire house. What is the action doing in that section? Cleaned. So that's my verb. Who or what is doing the cleaning? I, subject. My siblings ignored the effort and made a mess again. Well, for this one, my siblings ignored the effort and made a mess again. It almost looks like there's two verbs, which is okay. Ignored is something that we do, and then made is another thing that we do. Now, who or what is doing the ignoring and making? Well, it would be siblings. So that is a subject. I can see that I used a semicolon to connect this independent clause that has both a subject and verb with this independent clause that also has a subject and at least one verb. Okay, now here is another one. I wanted to join the game, semicolon. However, comma, I didn't have the proper equipment. Well, I know this is a semicolon, which means that this side has to be an independent clause and this side has to be an independent clause. Let's look at this first one. I wanted to join the game. What's the thing that they're doing? Well, they wanted. Who or what is doing the wanting? I. Now, however, comma, I didn't have the proper equipment. Didn't have the proper equipment. Well, the proper equipment isn't a verb. Have is a helping verb. I might remember that from my helping verb list, which I threw away because Mr. Carter told me to. I don't even need to worry about that. Verb. Now, who or what didn't have? Well, I didn't have. Now, you might be like, Mr. Carter, why is there a comma after the word however? Well, if I did the transition word lesson already, I would know that the word however is a transition word. It's transitioning from this idea to this idea, which are usually two opposite ideas. I wanted to join the game, but, or however, I didn't have the proper equipment, so he couldn't do what he wanted. It's just transitioning from one idea to the next using a transition word plus a comma to transition. Perfect. Sweet. Now, over here, we see the sun was shining brightly. It was perfect day for a picnic. What I need to do with this side is I need to put a semicolon plus identify the subject and verb for each independent clause. The sun was shining brightly. It was the perfect day for a picnic. I'm going to identify the verbs first. The sun was shining brightly. It was the perfect day for a picnic. The verbs are kind of tricky on this one. Maybe one of the verbs isn't an action, but it's one of those existence verbs. Is, am, are, was, were, be, being, and been. Oh, yeah, I see two was in there. So this is a was and this is a was. So that's a verb and that's a verb. Now, who or what was? Well, the sun. The sun was shining brightly. Subject. Now, who or what was the perfect day? It. It was a perfect day. Well, I see that I have a subject and verb here, and a subject and verb here. That means that this is an independent clause and this is an independent clause. They can't be right next to each other without anything in between them. We're going to connect the two with using a semicolon. Then I could go on and on. We do the same thing here. He wanted to stay home. She insisted on going to the party. He, subject, what did he do? Wanted, verb. She, subject, insisted, verb. Gonna connect the two with a semicolon. I studied hard for the test. It paid off when I got an A. I, subject, what did I do? Verb. It paid off. Paid off, possibly, is the verb. What paid off? It, subject. Well, can't connect those two independent clauses without putting something in between them. So I'm going to put the semicolon right there. My dog barked loudly at the door. Someone was delivering a package. Dog, subject. What was the dog doing? It barked. Verb, loudly at the door. Someone was delivering a package. Was is one of my being verbs. Was is a verb. Who or what was? Someone, subject, which means I need to put a semicolon right there to connect those two ideas. That is how you use a semicolon.